Good morning, it's Dr. Rapiti. Welcome to another video. It's Sunday the 24th of April 2022. It's a beautiful Sunday in Cape Town without a breeze, slightly overcast, but a nice sunny day. And today I want to talk about a video I saw presented by Dr. Philip Macmillan, who is an excellent clinician and a researcher on autoimmune diseases. And he was talking about his interview with Professor Geert van den Berg, who is a well-known, worldwide renowned vaccinologist who has had very strong views about COVID ever since it started and about the vaccines. He was not very popular for it, but he's a man of integrity, substance, knowledge, and has his heart in the right place. So I'm quite willing to listen to what he says. And it was quite difficult what he had to share with me, and I'm going to share this with you as best as I can. As a GP, I make it my business to learn what's being said, who's saying it, and the validity in what is being said. So I bring you, my viewers, what is the best available information, particularly on COVID. And what Geert van den Berg was saying is that one of the properties of these vaccines is that they tend to stimulate the neutralizing antibodies to such an extent that they depress our innate natural antibody system. And what that means is that if your innate natural immune system is suppressed, then it will give rise to neutralizing antibodies. It will give rise to new variants. And these variants will not be bypassed by the neutralizing antibodies, with the result that these new variants will play havoc on the vaccinated. And it was a theory postulated that, and that's seeming to come true at the moment. And another thing that he talked about is antibody dependent infections, antibody independent infections, which or antibody-dependent ADE, and what these really mean is that your body will be opened to more strains as we get more vaccinated. At the moment, the problem is we've seen this with Omicron. It's run rife with people that were most highly vaccinated, and in fact, the people that had 90% of admissions, incidents and hospitalizers and deaths was amongst the people that were vaccinated. 90% of them were vaccinated. Not so amongst the unvaccinated, because amongst your unvaccinated, and if you're infected, you had your natural innate immunity. So the big issue of concern for many of us would be, and for Geert van den Berg and Dr. Macmillan, was that it's all right if a pathogen is highly infectious and not virulent. The danger, Professor van den Berg alerted us to, is that if it becomes virulent, we're in serious trouble, because no vaccine can save us, because all we're producing is spike-type proteins, which are not really good enough. And that should be a concern. And I mean, I read an article by Professor Joe Barnes from the University of Cape Town expressing the gross uncertainty or hesitancy amongst citizens not to want to take the vaccine. Obviously, he is in favor of the vaccine, and so are all the top scientists like Marty, Glenda Gray, and Karim, and Mendelssohn. But if you listen to Professor Geert van den Bosche, you'd be very worried, because these vaccines really don't work against the Omicron strain. And the latest evidence to come out to prove Professor van den Berg's point, Bosche's point, is that in the UK, the 31 million that were doubly vaxxed, unvaccinated, and previously infected were compared with 32 million that were triple vaxxed. And I mentioned this earlier, yesterday, that those who had been triple vaxxed had a double incidence of infection, hospitalization, and deaths. Whereas those in the 60 age group who had triple vax had 4 times the risk. So this is proving, Prof Vanden and Bosche's point, that the more vaccinations you're going to get, the worse your immunity is going to be against variants. And if you get the virulent strain, I'm afraid our vaccines are not going to help us. And we're not doing enough about that. I'm pleased that with my protocol, I managed to deal with the virulent Delta strain. And this is what we should be putting our focus on, how to deal with virulent strains. It's a waste of time focusing too much on the vaccines and not dealing with the treatment aspect. I'm pretty confident if we do end up with a virulent strain, we'll have to act fast, treat early, and we can contain the spread. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, incidentally. I mean, I'm just merely studying a new vaccine that's proving to be ineffective and has hundreds of side effects. So I'm not going to sit back and watch and accept it. I think we need to question it. The next point I want to talk about is Dr. Fauci, the man who has been deriding the judge for slamming down vaccine mandates in the travel industry, calling the judge as not knowing anything. That was terribly insulting of the judiciary. The judiciary don't need to know the science. They merely need to listen to good arguments. And I'm afraid Dr. Fauci and his team did not present a cogent argument to prove that the masks work. They don't really work. They're a waste of time. And for his information, most of Africa has been using cloth masks, which are virtually nothing. They're useless. And did the incidence rise? No, they didn't. So here you have it. The evidence is there. Masks don't work. I hope we get rid of these wretched theatre masks in our face and destroy our lives. The next thing is that I cannot understand why SAPHRA was against the free sale of vitamin D, C and zinc, which are known immune boosters, which are vital during epidemics and infective periods, because they serve as immune boosters. There's overwhelming evidence. India, Peru and Mexico have all used these drugs. They've given them freely, and here we have SAPHRA trying to make it a medicine so that you cannot buy it over the counter. I fail to see why SAPHRA would do this other than being under pressure from Big Pharma. I would think they have something to answer for. They are very fast losing credibility. They're not working in the interest of the public. As for the Minister of Health crying about and worrying about incidents of COVID, you don't worry about the incidence of COVID, you worry about its virulence. The current strain is not very virulent, so you would allow it spread so you get herd immunity and everything is fine. You should read the science, listen to people who know the science. And finally, AstraZeneca, who has decided not to produce any more vaccines because there's a flood of it, suddenly decides to strike a deal with some African countries. How immoral is that? I leave you to decide on that. Thank you very much, Dr. Rapiti.